Silent vanguard. The sky above New Eden blazed with unnatural light as the Vox Collective's mothership slid into orbit. Kilometer wide and shaped like a perfect dodecahedron of obsidian glass, it dwarfed humanity's orbital platforms that had, until today, been the crowning achievement of the colony. Commander Maya Torres watched from the command center of New Eden's capital city as the alien vessel positioned itself directly above them, blocking out the sun and casting an ominous shadow across the settlement of 50,000 colonists. "Any response to our hails?" she asked, her voice steady despite the hollow feeling in her stomach. Lieutenant Iden Reeves shook his head. "Nothing, Commander. They've acknowledged receipt but continue to maintain silence." 2 days ago, the Vox Collective had appeared without warning at the edge of the Kepler 452-bit system, Earth's first interstellar colony, nicknamed New Eden for its remarkable Earth-like conditions, had been thriving for nearly 7 years. The settlement represented humanity's crowning achievement, proof that we could reach the stars and build a new home. Now its future hung in the balance. "Governor Chen is calling again," said Communications Officer Lyon Park. "She wants to know if we should begin evacuation procedures." Torres frowned. "Not yet. We don't know their intentions." As if in response to her words, every communication device in the command center activated simultaneously. Screens, personal devices, and holographic projectors flickered to life with the same image. A fluid, shifting mass of silver particles that coalesced into a roughly humanoid shape. "Inhabitants of Kepler 452 bits," the figure spoke, its voice a chorus of harmonized tones rather than a single entity. "We are the Vox Collective. Your presence has been noted, evaluated, and found interesting. Your species demonstrates potential value." Governor Chen, who had just entered the command center, stepped forward. "On behalf of humanity, we welcome peaceful contact." Individual communication is inefficient," the Vox interrupted, the silver face showing no emotion. "We speak as one. We function as one. This is optimal. Your species operates through inefficient individual consciousness. This can be corrected." Torres felt a chill run through her. "Corrected how?" she asked. The silver face shifted, particles flowing like mercury. "Assimilation into the collective. Your biological distinctiveness and technological achievements will be added to our own. Your individual consciousnesses will join our symphony. It is an honor. Preparation for planetary assimilation begins now. You have 48 Earth hours to prepare your population." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Did they just threaten to assimilate us?" Governor Chen whispered. Torres was already moving. "Lieutenant Reeves, contact Earth Command immediately. Use Quantum Channel Alpha. Lieutenant Park, begin civilian evacuation protocols. Get as many people to the emergency shelters as possible." "The shelters won't protect against a ship that size," Chen argued. Torres met her gaze steadily. "The shelters aren't for protection. They're collection points for evacuation." "Evacuation? With what ships?" "Our orbital transports can barely hold 500 people each, and we have only 12 of them. That's 6,000 people at most." Torres tapped a sequence into her wrist communicator. "Governor, there's something you don't know about. Something Earth Command classified at the highest level." She looked up, her eyes hard with determination. "We have one option, and it's called the Nightfall Project." The Nightfall wasn't supposed to exist, at least not officially. Hidden beneath New Eden's southern mountain range in a massive subterranean hangar, the experimental vessel represented the cutting edge of human technology and ingenuity. "She's beautiful," whispered Governor Chen as they descended in the high-speed elevator that led to the secret facility. Torres nodded. Through the transparent walls of the elevator shaft, they could see the Nightfall taking shape below them. A sleek obsidian vessel nearly a kilometer long, its hull adorned with intricate patterns that pulsed with soft blue light. Project Nightfall began before the colony was even established, Torres explained. Earth Command knew that once we stepped into the stars, we might encounter other civilizations, not all of them friendly. The elevator doors opened, and they stepped onto the main engineering deck. Dozens of technicians worked frantically, preparing the ship for launch. Commander on deck called out Chief Engineer Vikram Patel, rushing over to meet them. "We've been monitoring the situation. The Nightfall can be ready in 36 hours. "We don't have 36 hours, Torres responded grimly. "The Vox gave us 48, but I don't trust them to wait that long. We need to be ready to launch in 24. Patel's eyes widened. "Commander, the quantum fold drive hasn't been fully calibrated. We've never tested it with a full crew complement. And we never planned to evacuate an entire colony." Torres countered. "How many people can the Nightfall hold?" Patel hesitated. She was designed for a crew of 300. But in an emergency, maybe 15,000. 20,000 if we use all cargo spaces and operate with minimal life support in those areas. Governor Chen paled. "That's less than half our population." Torres placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll make multiple trips if we have to. But first, we need to focus on getting the most vulnerable out: children, medical cases, essential personnel. And if the Vox attack while we're loading civilians." Torres turned to look at the Nightfall's sleek form. "Then they'll learn what humanity does when backed into a corner." The evacuation proceeded with remarkable order, considering the circumstances. The colonists of New Eden had always known they were pioneers on the frontier. Risk was part of their DNA. When told they faced an alien threat, they responded not with panic, but with the same determined efficiency that had built a thriving colony on an alien world. Torres directed operations from the Nightfall's bridge, which hummed with activity as systems came online one by one. The quantum fold drive, humanity's first practical FTL technology, remained the biggest concern. Designed to create a temporary fold in space-time, it could transport the Nightfall vast distances in moments, but it had never been tested with a full load. "Commander, we've got 18,000 civilians aboard," reported Lieutenant Reeves. "All essential personnel are accounted for, and we've prioritized children and medical cases as ordered." Torres nodded, studying the tactical display. The Vox mothership remained in orbit, but smaller craft had begun to deploy, dozens of hexagonal vessels descending toward New Eden's major population centers. "What about the Colonial Defense Force?" she asked. "Most are aboard, but Captain Alvarez and 200 volunteers are staying behind to coordinate the remaining evacuation efforts. They're gathering as many colonists as possible at the secondary sites for our next run." Torres felt a weight settle in her chest. Even running continuous evacuation operations, they might not be able to save everyone. Her communications panel chimed. "Commander, incoming transmission from the Vox Collective." The bridge screen flickered to life, showing the same silver face as before. "Your evacuation attempts are noted. They are inefficient and unnecessary. Resistance causes suffering. Individual consciousness is limited. Join our symphony willingly." Torres stood from her command chair. "We appreciate your offer, but humanity has always valued its individuality. We respectfully decline assimilation." The silver face rippled with what might have been confusion or annoyance. "Your response is illogical. The collective optimizes existence. Individual suffering ends. Knowledge is shared. Purpose is unified. And yet we choose our own path." Torres replied firmly. "We'll defend that right if necessary." "Unfortunate," the Vox responded. "Acceleration of timeline is now required. Assimilation will begin immediately." The transmission cut off, and alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple energy signatures from the mothership called out the tactical officer. "They're powering weapons systems." On the main viewer, the hexagonal vessels suddenly accelerated their descent toward the colony. From their undersides, a silver mist began to deploy. Nanomachines, according to the Nightfall sensors, billions of them. "Assimilation technology," muttered Lieutenant Park. "They're going to convert our people into more of them." Torres's expression hardened. Not today they won't. Chief Engineer Patel, status of the quantum fold drive. Online but untested, Commander. I cannot guarantee. Understood. Begin launch sequence. Lieutenant Reeves, inform Captain Alvarez, we're initiating Operation Umbra. They have 20 minutes to get as many colonists to the emergency bunkers as possible. Operation Umbra, Commander. But that's a last resort. I know. Torres took her seat in the command chair, strapping herself in as the Nightfall's engines hummed to life. Sometimes the only way forward is through the fire. Alert all personnel. We launch in 5 minutes. Operation Umbra, Commander. But that's a last resort. I know. Torres took her seat in the command chair, strapping herself in as the Nightfall's engines hummed to life. Sometimes the only way forward is through the fire. Alert all personnel. We launch in 5 minutes. The Nightfall's subterranean bay doors began to slide open above them, revealing a tunnel that led to the surface. As the ship's anti-gravity systems engage, Torres took one last look at the tactical display showing the Vox vessels descending toward the helpless colony. "Hold on, Captain Alvarez," she whispered. "We'll be back for you." With a surge of power that caused the lights to dim momentarily, the Nightfall rose from its hidden berth, ascending rapidly toward the surface of New Eden, and the alien armada waiting above. Defiance ascendant. The Nightfall erupted from its underground hangar like a spear thrown by a titan, its obsidian hull gleaming in the sunlight as it rocketed toward the upper atmosphere. Aboard the bridge, Commander Torres and her crew braced against crushing acceleration as the experimental vessel's engines pushed them to the edge of what human physiology could withstand. Vox vessels altering course to intercept. Lieutenant Park reported, her voice strained against the D-forces. 5 hexagonal craft on approach vector. Torres tightened her grip on the command chair. Evasive pattern Sigma. Bring point defense systems online. The Nightfall banked sharply, its hull plates shifting and reconfiguring to optimize aerodynamics as it cut through New Eden's atmosphere. Unlike traditional spacecraft, the experimental vessel was designed for both atmospheric and space operations, giving it superior maneuverability in the colony's skies. "Commander, the Vox are firing," Lieutenant Reeves called out. Beams of coherent energy lanced toward the Nightfall from the pursuing hexagonal craft. The human vessel's defensive systems responded automatically, its hull absorbing and redistributing the energy across its surface in pulsing blue patterns. "Adaptive shielding holding at 82%, reported the tactical officer. "But we can't take sustained fire for long." Torres nodded. "We don't need long. Execute emergency fold. Target coordinates. Dark side of New Eden's moon." Chief Engineer Patel's voice came through the comm, tense but controlled. "Commander, I must emphasize that we've never attempted a quantum fold with a full complement. The stress on the drive system is a calculated risk, Chief. We need breathing room to assess and counter the Vox capabilities." "Understood. Quantum fold initiating in 3, 2, 1. Reality seemed to bend around the Nightfall. For a heartbeat, every crew member felt as if they were being stretched across an infinite distance while simultaneously compressed to a single point. Then, with a silent flash of blue light, the ship vanished from New Eden's skies, leaving 5 confused Vox vessels firing at empty air. When the disorientation cleared, the Nightfall was floating in the shadow of New Eden's moon, temporarily shielded from both the colony and the Vox mothership. "Status report," Torres commanded, fighting back a wave of nausea, a common side effect of quantum folding. "All systems operational," Paddle responded, sounding surprised. "Quantum fold drive performing within acceptable parameters. Hull integrity at 99%. And our passengers. Some minor injuries from the acceleration, but medical teams are responding." "Commander, it worked better than we could have hoped." Torres allowed herself a brief smile. "Humanity's finest engineering, Chief. Now, let's see what else this ship can do." Tactical, full scan of the Vox mothership. I want to know its weaknesses. The tactical officer's hands flew across his console. Scanning. Commander, I'm detecting something unusual. The Vox vessel's power distribution isn't centralized like ours. It operates more like a neural network. Energy flows constantly reconfigure based on need. A physical manifestation of their hive mind. Torres mused. Lieutenant Park, access the xenobiology briefing from Earth Command. Didn't it mention something about Vox cognitive architecture? Park nodded, pulling up the classified files. Yes, Commander. Theoretical models suggested that hive mind species might be vulnerable to information overflow or pattern disruption. Their neural structures evolved to handle collective input, but can be overwhelmed by contradictory or chaotic data streams. A plan began to form in Torres's mind. So a species that values perfect harmony might be particularly vulnerable to discord. Commander, interrupted Lieutenant Reeves, the Vox vessels are scanning the moon's surface. They're looking for us. Let them look, Torres replied. Tactical, prepare the quantum resonance array. Chief Patel, I need the fold drive reconfigured to generate microbursts rather than a full fold. The swirling face struggled to respond, its voice now discordant and fragmented. How? Impossible. Harmony disrupted. Make it stop. We will stop, Torres said firmly, on one condition. You leave this system immediately and never return. Additionally, you will spread word to other species that humanity is not to be trifled with. We value our individuality, our freedom, and we will defend it at all costs. The face swirled in what might have been agony. Compliance. Necessary. Harmony must be restored. Then we have an agreement. Torres nodded to the tactical officer. Deactivate the quantum resonance array. As the disruptive field collapsed, the Vox mothership gradually began to stabilize, its hull returning to its perfect geometric form. Without another word, its engines flared to life, and it began to move away from New Eden, recalling its surface vessels as it departed. 3 days later, the Nightfall had completed its final evacuation run. Captain Alvarez and his volunteers had managed to protect the remaining colonists by using the colony's shield generators to create isolated pockets that the Vox nanomachines couldn't penetrate. With the alien threat gone, the process of rebuilding could begin. Torres stood in the observation lounge of the Nightfall, watching as shuttles ferried colonists back to the surface. Governor Chen joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Earth Command sent a message, Chen said, handing 1 cup to Torres. The reinforcement fleet will arrive within the week. They're bringing additional supplies and personnel to help with reconstruction. Torres nodded, taking a sip of the coffee. And what do they make of our encounter with the Vox? They're calling it a watershed moment. The quantum technology of the Nightfall proved more effective than anyone anticipated. They're already talking about building more ships with similar capabilities. Not just weapons, Torres said firmly. What saved us wasn't superior firepower. It was understanding our enemy and using their strength against them. The Vox valued perfect harmony so much that discord became their weakness. Chen smiled. A rather human solution, wouldn't you say? Finding the poetry in quantum physics. The silent symphony, Torres murmured. Pardon. That's what I'm calling it in my report. The Vox thought their collective consciousness made them superior, a perfect symphony of minds. They never considered that sometimes the most powerful notes are the ones left unplayed. She turned to look at the governor. Humanity survived because we're not a collective. Our strength lies in our individuality, our chaos, our disagreements and contradictions. As they watched, the sun rose over New Eden, casting golden light across the recovering colony. In orbit above them, automated beacons were being deployed, warning signs to any other species that might venture into human space. They carried a simple message. Here dwells humanity. Approach with respect or not at all. The galaxy had laughed at the primitive humans and their lone colony. No one was laughing now.